Do swimming pools need antifreeze for the closing and winterizing process? And the surprising answer is no, they don't. I mean, like you can, and I'll get to it in a minute. You should be using it, but you don't technically need antifreeze. First of all, let's just cover it doesn't go in the pool. You're not trying to prevent the pool itself from freezing. The pool is going to freeze, and adding antifreeze is not going to solve that. Nor would that be a good thing. You wouldn't want to be swimming in a pool of antifreeze next year. So the idea with antifreeze is that you can add it to certain parts of the swimming pool which are known for high likelihood of damage from freezing. And that's kind of where I like to use it. You don't need it because if you were to evacuate all of the water from all of the plumbing in the swimming pool, well, there is no water inside of the plumbing with which to freeze, expand, and break and damage the plastic that the plumbing is made from. So with no water in the plumbing, you technically don't need antifreeze, which is why I say you technically don't need it. But, let's look at something like a pool skimmer. You don't need antifreeze inside of the plumbing line for a pool skimmer, but I sure like to use it because there's always the chance that you're going to have a problem with the winterizing where water leaks in, and then you've evacuated all the water from the skimmer line, but over the winter season, that water leaks back in there. Now it could freeze and break, and almost certainly it's going to cause some expensive damage. Whereas if we had gone through the same process of evacuating all of the water from the skimmer line, but then went so far as to add in, perhaps a liter of swimming pool antifreeze, or maybe even twice that amount into that line before we added the gizmo or a plug into the skimmer. If we had done that, even if water managed to find its way back into that pipe, the pipe is already occupied with antifreeze. And so the hope is that you would be afforded some level of protection from that antifreeze, despite the fact that water has found its way back in. And that is the idea here. This is cheap protection, or a cheap, second layer of protection that you can be adding. Go through the winterizing process. If things are done ideally, then you've evacuated all of the water from the system, so no damage can happen. But we go ahead and add that antifreeze anyway, just to give us that extra layer of protection. Now let's talk about the kind of pools that you would use antifreeze in. As I've mentioned before, a skimmer is one of the main places that you could, would, and should use antifreeze when you're winterizing a pool. The returns, less so. But it's worth considering that every swimming pool is unique. Some pools you might have to charge the return lines with antifreeze, but I would say commonly the average in-ground swimming pool, you would not add antifreeze to any of the return lines, only the skimmer itself. And where else? Well, if you have an automatic water fill unit, the kind which is located adjacent to the pool edge, similar to like what the skimmer is, those are highly inclined to break. They're made of a very thin-walled plastic. And as a result, if they freeze, it's almost certainly going to shatter and cause damage to this water fill unit. And that's probably the single place that I use the most antifreeze. I just go to town, just dump in a whole jug of it. A jug of antifreeze might be $5 or something like that. And that is $5 well spent trying to protect an automatic water leveler that's adjacent to a swimming pool. Because again, those are just kind of a known problem. A skimmer is the same thing. It's a plastic walled device that's, next to the wall of the swimming pool. But skimmers are more rugged and more robust plastic than what you'd have on the average automatic water fill. If I had the plastic in my hand, you could just squeeze it, almost break it with your hand, whereas a skimmer is not like that at all. You could hardly break one with a hammer if you had one. So that's kind of where you use antifreeze in swimming pools, is you would use it in the skimmer, you would use it in an automatic water fill, the average pool, not in the returns. What about a hot tub that's attached to your swimming pool? That's another place where you probably want to go ahead and use a lot of antifreeze. The idea being that you don't need it, you're going to evacuate all of that water, but plumbing systems for hot tubs can be complicated and they can be hard to get all of the water out. You can end up trapping some water in there. And so in a lot of cases, you end up charging the jet lines and the return lines with antifreeze if possible, because you're just trying to do everything you can to protect this hot tub. And with some attached hot tubs, the main drain system or the main drain setup is not really made for winterizing. And in these cases, you just more or less just dump in a jug or 2 or 4 jugs of antifreeze in hopes that you maybe can protect the entire hot tub from freezing, because the hot tub is a lot smaller than a swimming pool in terms of volume. So it is more reasonable to think that you could add some antifreeze directly to the hot tub. And then in the spring, you can just pump that right to the street instead of adding it into the hot tub. So you're not swimming in all of that antifreeze that you use, because attached hot tubs, man, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with those when you're winterizing. And that's really where I would use antifreeze. But the average, closing and winterizing process, if you're doing it properly, technically, you don't even need the antifreeze. If you found this information helpful, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can check out my website, swimmingpoolsteve.com.